Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Today's podcast is sponsored by SLI Systems, providers of intelligent site search and navigation solutions. Learn more at sli-systems.com and listen to their interviews at ecommercepodcast.com.
Your path to e-commerce success starts right here. You're listening to Practical E-commerce, the podcast for e-commerce results.
Welcome back to another Practical E-commerce podcast. My name is Brian Getting, and this is the week of August 21st, 2006. Just another one of our weekly podcasts here. I had to crack up a little bit. I always laugh a little when I hear that beginning to our podcast. It's actually a friend of mine who does the voiceover work there, and that was a funny day. On to the good stuff. This week, Mitch Bettis had a chance to speak with a gentleman named Corey Koenig, who is a channel sales manager for Authorize.net. It's an interesting ball of wax what they do at Authorize.net. They're a payment gateway for anybody that doesn't know. Definitely check out their website, Authorize.net. This is an interesting interview. It has a lot of good stuff about PCI compliance and other information about choosing a shopping cart and gateway that I think a lot of people will find very valuable. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Mitch, and here he is with Corey Koenig of Authorize.net.
Let's begin with a general discussion on how you would approach advising an e-commerce merchant as they are selecting a shopping cart or perhaps switching from one cart to another. Is there broad advice that you could provide to someone and to help them kind of wade through these waters with that there are so many choices?
Well, I think that merchants need to do a lot of research because there are so many products out there. They need to find a product that fits their feature set, has all the features that they need, whether it's reporting, order management, different payment options. A lot of carts are now offering marketing services. So if you want to help market your business, that's a key thing to look for. Shipping features, if they integrate with different shipping companies like UPS and FedEx. I think a big decision is the hosted versus licensed decision, whether you buy a hosted solution or if you buy the software and run it on your own servers. There's also pricing options. There's free shopping carts out there, and it goes from free to very expensive, and that's a big consideration to take into account. Then, of course, security. PCI has been big lately, payment applications, best practices, and you want to make sure that you're meeting those requirements.
Is there, in particular, in terms of a payment processor, are there things from your role in this transaction process at Authorize.net and all payment processors? Are there things that rise to a level of kind of critical observation for you in terms of advising someone?
There are. Most importantly, you have flexible payment options. A lot of shopping carts will integrate with multiple payment gateways, and that gives you the option of working with multiple different merchant accounts. Now, there's some shopping carts out there that only work with one merchant bank, so you're really stuck. If you get that shopping cart, you're really stuck on using that company's merchant services. So, by providing different options, you really have more flexibility with your business.
And then you had mentioned earlier one of the big discussions is making that decision of a licensed cart package versus a so-called hosted solution. Are there particular distinctions that you advise people about when considering those two, or do those same kind of the general advice, does it apply to both, or is there something distinctive about each that one might ought to consider?
Well, I think that when you go with a hosted solution, first of all, a hosted solution might offer you a lower monthly cost, so you can get a turnkey solution for much less than paying a one-time license fee. So that could be a big deal for a smaller merchant who's new to e-commerce and is just trying to get started. On the other hand, a licensed solution, it might offer better website integration. So, for example, the shopping cart would actually be integrated with your website. So when a customer comes to your site, they may never leave your website during the checkout process. And, to a lot of larger merchants, that's an important consideration.
What is this notion of being PCI compliant, and how does that fit into this type of discussion?
PCI compliance is a security standard set forth by Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover, and it covers how you handle sensitive data at a high level. And shopping carts aren't at this point required to be PCI compliant, but there are some out there that are. In fact, there's probably only about half a dozen out there that are compliant. But merchants need to be compliant with PCI regardless, so they need to make sure that their solution helps them meet those requirements.
So if only a half a dozen carts are PCI compliant, is there a way to be PCI compliant outside of that handful of carts?
There is. A lot of it has to do with your internal controls and how you handle sensitive data. One thing that's nice about these PCI compliant carts is you can kind of push that off of the merchant onto the service provider. And, you kind of gain PCI compliance by working with one of those companies.
If a merchant is switching carts, they've made a decision to make an evolution from either a license to a hosting or hosting to license or somewhere within either of those genres. Mm-hmm. Are there above and beyond things that need to be considered in the switching mode that may not need to be analyzed on kind of an initial purchase option? This switching can be a very complicated process.
It can.
And so what do we need to watch out for if we're making a leap from one option to another?
Well, I think there's a couple things. Ease of setup, how easy is a new cart to set up? Support, what type of support does this shopping cart provide? When you're going live, it's nice to have a good support staff in case there are problems. But I think the key is you need to really test your shopping cart, in a separate test environment. Make sure that it works with your gateway or your merchant account, and maybe even run it concurrently with your existing shopping cart before you have all the bugs ironed out and you're comfortable with going live.
And in terms of the payment processor, a gateway like Authorize, do you have kind of a nutshell, song and verse to kind of help someone explain how these various pieces interlock in order to successfully complete a secure transaction from cart to final bank account?
Sure. So the actual transaction starts on the customer or the merchant's website. A consumer will add something to a shopping cart, and the shopping cart will generally total up the item, add tax, add shipping, and collect their credit card information, and when they submit it, it'll generally go through a payment gateway. And from the payment gateway, it goes to the processing networks for authorization. And at the end of the day, the batch is settled at the processor, and then the funds are delivered to the merchant bank account. And the authorization part of that process usually takes a few seconds to authorize a transaction, and they usually get their funds deposited 2 to 3 days later.
As you've seen trends, perhaps in shopping carts, perhaps in payment processing in general, mm-hmm. Are there things that you see coming around the corner that either small e-commerce merchants should either be excited about or perhaps even wary about? Maybe a glimpse in the Authorize.net boardroom of what are we talking about around the corner that maybe we don't know about yet?
Well, I think what's impressive about this market is that there's so many solutions out there. There's a lot of the larger players are doing a good job of adding these features that merchants want or need, whether it's order management so they can manage their entire store, auction integration so they can reach new markets, and alternative payments. We're already seeing some of the larger carts adopt Google Checkout, so it's going to be interesting to see the demand for that among consumers. And we've also seen some consolidation. A couple shopping carts have been purchased by public companies, which has been interesting. So, we may see more of that type of consolidation. On the other hand, there are some new open source projects that I think are pretty interesting. Some people are developing some new shopping carts in .NET and Ruby on Rails. And I think there's a lot of potential for those types of projects to grow, and those are a good starting place for some new merchants.
You mentioned open source, and in terms of kind of this overall shopping cart discussion, clearly there are some free and pretty fantastic options out there.
There are, yes.
Would you advise an average e-commerce owner who probably has little to no tech support to evolve toward an open source option, or are those more technically advanced that are really reserved for somebody who has a lot more IT experience? Where would you put them in that kind of panoply of 300 some odd cart options out there?
I would put them in the more technically advanced category. I think that when merchants consider open source, they need to consider total cost of ownership. What's it going to cost to get this thing up and running? And while you're saving money on the software, a lot of times you do need an IT staff or a full-time developer to keep that thing running the way you want it to.
Is there a resource you have used that helped better than others, perhaps helps people understand those various options so that they can decide, yes, this particular one best fits my business? Is there a good consolidated resource that you're aware of out there?
There's a couple different resources I'd suggest. There's a website called shopping-cart-review, and they have a good resource of about the top 20 shopping carts, and they list all the features, and that's a good place to start. We also have a certified shopping cart directory on our website where we have about 100 shopping carts that we've certified on our platform, and you can go through and you can read about them and read a description of their service.
What would it mean to be a certified cart versus one that obviously doesn't meet that criteria?
Right, so there's kind of two categories. There's certified and there's compatible. And with the certified shopping carts, we've verified that they send transactions to our gateway to our spec, and they meet the latest version of our API. And we also look at their security and their privacy policies to make sure that they're handling cardholder data in an appropriate way.
And that's going to probably wrap it up for this week's podcast. I want to make sure to thank Mitch Bettis again, and also Corey Koenig. That was a fantastic little interview. And to check on some of the information that Corey was discussing in the previous interview there, you want to go to his website when he refers to the website. That's authorized.net. Also, make sure to check out our website at practicalyecommerce.com. Community forums are still letting people win $100 a month. We're about to give away our second $100 gift certificate. So get into the community forums, participate, and hopefully you'll win. Otherwise, we'll see you next week.